Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Accidental Isolation, where I like to bring on a guest to speak about a moment where they may have felt isolated, whether that be physically, mentally, or emotionally. Today we're at the wonderful Wentworth and Finn, and we got the wonderful Matthew on the show, man. Thank you as well for giving me your time. I'd like to thank all the guests for just giving me their time. Everybody's time is valuable, so you showing up today means a lot to me and all the listeners and viewers.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm looking forward to it. I think you're a dope dude, so
Yes, sir.
looking forward to the conversation and just vibe.
So let's go ahead and dive into yourself. Let's let the viewers and listeners know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, name is Mathu Gibson. I'm from originally born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
Trefo. All my people from back home know. Born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Single-parent household. Was the youngest of four siblings.
Okay.
I got 3 older sisters, so I was raised in a house full of women. So that's like, I always like to just kind of talk through that, set that framework up. But I think something about me is that I like to consider myself a dreamer. Mm-hmm. That's why I would say that's who I am at heart. When I have a vision in my head, when I have a desire or something, I like to go get it.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of who I am, is being this dreamer. So from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, grew up, played football in high school.
Okay.
That's kind of where I think that's where the real juicy parts of my story begin, I guess. Started playing football in high school. Freshman year was my first year ever stepping onto the football field. Didn't play a lick.
Yeah, that's like me.
Yeah.
I started my halfway through freshman year, sophomore year.
Okay, yeah. So you know how it goes. So it's like you just kind of out there swimming. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Deer in the headlights, man. I was playing defensive line at that time and getting pancaked. Getting cussed out by the coach because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I rode the bench my freshman year. Yeah. Sophomore year, though, I hit a growth spurt. I was 5'9" my freshman year in high school. I grew to 6'2", 225 over the year.
Fell in love then.
Yeah, like, who is this kid? They put me on the offensive line, though, at that time. So from that point, I played O-line for the rest of my career. Was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go play football at Wingate University.
Okay.
From there, I redshirted my freshman year, didn't play that year. I sat out, just got bigger, ate. And then from there, my redshirt freshman year all the way to my senior year, I was a starter. So I was a 4-year starter at Wingate.
Okay.
My last season there, all-conference player. Really dominated on the field, I feel like. And so one vision that I always had, going back to me being a dreamer, is that I always had this dream of playing in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Even when I was in 9th grade on the bench, I kind of had this feeling in my heart, like,
I could do it.
I want to do this. And so I used to write it down. I used to have it everywhere. I would play in the NFL. I didn't talk about it a lot to people, but I always knew in my head that I could do that.
Yeah.
And so following my senior year, we went to I just made a choice. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pursue my dream of playing in the NFL. I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I will be on the NFL or CFL team by August of 2016.
Okay.
So this was January 2016. And like I said, I was just kind of just leaning on what I knew, leaning on this vision that I saw in my head, this dream that I always had. I didn't really have a lot of evidence to prove that it was actually going to happen, So January 2016, I wrote it down. And from there, every single day, I just started working. I started reaching out to people that I used to do internships with. They ended up connecting me with some NFL agents who sent me to go work out at some top-notch facilities. I got some good training. It was the first time I cracked 300 pounds, and I was lean, I was fit, all these different things.
So, like, getting up to 300 or down below 300?
300,
okay,
man.
Okay.
So, like, my whole career, I came into college at 240.
Yeah.
I left at 290.
Okay.
And so, you know how it go. During the season, your weight is always fluctuating. So, I finally cracked 300 pounds. I went up to the regional combine. I had a great times. I ran a good 40. I did great in the position drills. And that was the first time my whole life I talked to an NFL team.
Yeah.
After that, the Jets came and hollered at me. Chiefs came and hollered at me. It's like, yo, you did good. We like what you're doing. Keep working. And the Broncos ended up talking to me as well. So, we're going through this process. Let's fast forward to draft day. Draft day comes, no call comes. But after the draft, the New York Jets called me and was like, yo, come work out with us. We got a rookie mini camp tryout we want to send you up to. So I went up to New Jersey, did the rookie mini camp. I felt like that was my opportunity to play against D1 players for the first time. I'm like, dang, I actually could do this. You know what I'm saying? So it gives you that confidence. It's like, dang, I'm actually competing with these dudes and locking dudes up. And so that made me feel good, but you already know how it is. It's a business when it comes to football. So like they couldn't keep linemen. They just trying to get skill players that they was trying to keep. I got cut.
Especially during rookie minicamp.
Yeah,
there's no pads.
for sure, exactly.
He's just out there running around.
So like for example, like I came in with guys like Doug Middleton. I know he was on the show. Doug, me and Doug from Winston-Salem.
Okay,
And so Doug was there. He obviously stayed with them. Robbie Anderson at the time. He was actually an undrafted free agent that came in and he got a shot with them. So it's just like they were keeping those skill players, guys like that. And so, it just wasn't my time yet. So I came back home, Winston-Salem. I was working out every single day. Just keeping my mind steadied on this, like, remember what I said I was going to try to accomplish. I already told myself, like, I'm going to give it a year at least. And if it don't work out, it don't work out. But I'm going to give it a year. And so I'm working, I'm grinding. And I ain't going to lie, at times I wanted to quit because it's like, man, nothing is really coming into fruition is what I think. But every time I wanted to quit, it would be something where, like, an NFL team would call me, like, oh, I remember one time the Cardinals called me. I ain't talked to them all. And I'm like, hey, man, just stay ready. I'm like, man, if that ain't God talking to me, like, just when I be feeling like, man, I quit. F this.
It's like that girl that was always out of your league. And she just come say, hey. She don't say nothing else. She say, hey, and leave. Like,
stop playing games with me, man. That's how it feels. And so August 2016 is coming around. I'm working a basketball camp, and it's just crazy. I remember, I always like to tell this part of it. I remember I was going to get some breakfast that morning. I just woke up feeling good. I went and stopped, got some McDonald's. Usually I hit the drive-thru. I got out of the car, and I went in that day. And when I went in that day, it was this lady. She was talking to me, and she was cleaning up, sweeping. She was just, I guess she saw how big I was. Yeah. She was like, you play a sport? I was like, I'm a free agent right now. I'm waiting on my opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. Got my food, leaving out. And she was like, you do good, baby. And then she's like, you mind if I pray for you? And so I'm just like, sure. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, you can pray for me. She prayed for me. And I just remember like feeling like, that's interesting. And so I left, went to the camp, working the camp, and then I had terrible service in there. Gets to the lunch break. I stepped back outside to check my phone because at this time I was talking to my agent about going to play in Canada. So I wanted to see if anything was moving with that. I get a call from the Denver Broncos. One of the scouts is like, hey man, wanted to see if you've been working out. We wanted to fly you out for it to work out. Man, I didn't even finish. I didn't even finish the voicemail.
Like, I'm calling back right now.
Call back right now. He's like, yeah, man, if you working out, come out, man. We'll fly you out tonight. I left the camp early. Yeah. Called my mama on the way home. Like, hey, mom, start packing my bag. It's time to go. It's time. And so I get there. I fly out of Charlotte. So I fly from Greensboro to Charlotte and fly to Denver that night. End up getting into Denver that night, bro. And work out the next day. And I'm working out literally in front of everybody. Yeah. All of the scouts, coaches, scouts, everybody. Executives, everybody. John Elway was out there, which was crazy, watching me work out. And literally every single workout that I did was the exact workout that I used to do every single day, bro. I freaked it. I killed it. They was like, this dude is big. He's moving. He moves well. They cut the workout short, said, let's go upstairs and sign him. Signed the NFL contract on August 4th, 2016. And like I said, at the beginning of the year, I said by August of 2016, I'll be on the NFL team. Yeah. And the crazy part about it is August 4th, I signed. August 6th is my birthday, bro. Yeah. So it's just like, it's crazy how like all it came together, man. Like I was talking to you before this about this book, The Alchemist, is that like when you really want something, all the universe conspires to help you achieve it, right? And so I say this long ass story to say this is that
that's what we're here for.
I say all that to say is that, I'm a dreamer at heart, bro. And so like that story showed me the power of like believing in your vision, the power of putting the work behind your vision, and that like when you just trust and stay the course, things work out how it comes together. It might not come together how you see it, but if you don't give up, you keep going, the dream that you have in your heart is going to come to life. Exactly. And so I say I'm a dreamer, and obviously there's so much more to that, right? So I kind of I'm gonna cut it right there. But I'm a dreamer, bro. I'm a writer. I'm an encourager, bro, and that shows up in so many different things that I do. You know what I mean? But who I am fundamentally, those are some aspects to me. You feel
That's
me?
who you are. Then what you do is just all the work that
It's
comes
just
out
an
of it.
expression of that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, there you have it, man. Like a dope dude. I honestly can't remember where I found you or heard from you. I know it started on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I can't remember right now, but that's what I saw. Like
Yeah.
I saw the dreamer, I seen the visionary, and I seen someone like me. Something that this platform, like a reason this platform is here, is so you can find someone like you or find someone with a similar story as you, so that when they tell their story, you have something to learn from. You have something that you can go and grab and go and listen to or go and read and, you know what I'm saying, and see what they did, and maybe it'll help you out. So that's what I saw when I went to your page. He was an old athlete. Right? Well, not an old athlete. He was an older athlete, you know what I'm saying? You know, he's done with playing ball, and he's still inspiring. He's still doing something that he really wants to do, and he's showing it for you all. Yeah, man. So that's dope. That's dope. Before the show, we spoke a little bit about like what accidental isolation is.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that. Like some people have isolations where it's mental, physical, or emotional, right? And some people it's something really big, something super pivotal in their life that changed the whole trajectory. And then a lot of people, they have like many isolations that carry over time, and then it keeps coming. And each one, they learn something new. They learn something different. So what does an isolation, or what does accidental isolation look like for you?
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept, by the way, too. And also, I know we both were on a similar podcast, so
Okay, yeah.
So that's
Doctor,
yeah. But I would say the first isolation for me was after I finished playing football, right?
Okay.
So I know that you can relate to that feeling of like once your career is done, it's like, who am I? What do I do? And so for me, when I got finished playing in Montreal, 2017, July 2017 was the last time I touched the football field.
Okay.
And I was playing in Montreal, Canada. It was my last game preseason. Got cut, came back home. I was looking at the journal, and I was looking at my journal and saying like, I was like, what am I doing now, right? Like, damn, I'm back home, bro. Like, what am I? I was just in this space of like, shit, I really don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Right, and really trying to figure it out. So the accidental isolation, I feel like, really came when my career ended. It was this search, man. It was this I felt mentally isolated, felt emotionally isolated. I felt depressed. That was the first time in my life where I really, really felt depressed. When I really felt anxiety, like, oh, this is what anxiety is. It's not just butterflies before the game. This is how it feels. Yeah. This is depression, like, right? I'm not just sad. It's this loss of identity, man. And so, you know, I think after I finished playing, I went and coached at Wingate. Okay. My coach, Coach Keziah, he looked out for me a lot, man. I think he was just trying to give me something to do, man. And so, like, he was like, yo, just come back and coach. You can live with me, find you a job on campus. I was doing campus safety, also coaching, bro. So it was like trying to figure out what's next for my life. And, you know, for a while, I was like, yeah, I think I might be able to do this coaching thing. But we had a playoff game, and we lost. And I remember having that same feeling of just like, damn, I hate this feeling. Yeah. Like, one, we lost. But then, two, it's like, who am I? Yeah. Like, I don't really know who I am outside of this game.
And what's next?
Right.
The offseason comes.
Yeah.
Even so as a college coach, you're doing a lot of stuff in the offseason, but it's not the same as during the season.
Exactly.
So you still just have that time alone and away from the game, and you get back to that moment of like, who am I? Who am I?
What do I do? I know you. Have you ever felt like this too? And I'll get back to my point, but have you ever felt like this, like like when you were playing, like once the off season come, you got all this extra time, you ain't got no practice or nothing, and it's just like, damn, what am I doing now? If we ain't partying, what we doing?
Definitely, and I think that's what sparked. So my first year playing pro ball, was with the Stallions.
Yeah,
2022.
Yeah.
I had a first year, and I had started this podcast through that season. Because, you know, this was my first time being a pro, too. So, like, I went to North Greenville, small private Christian school, and I was a person that was, when I went to school, my first year, I was like, I don't want to make no friends. I'm here to play ball, transfer.
I feel it.
That I don't even know where transfer came from because I had no intentions of leaving. So, my whole 4 years, except for, like, a little bit of my senior year, I wasn't partying. There was no girls at North Greenville that I was talking to. Like, it was literally nothing.
Just locked in.
My first 3 years, I was playing ball. So when the offseason came, it was training. Yeah. So when I finally got to experience, you know, playing in Houston or playing in Alabama, during the seasons, I already started to. I'm writing a book now. It's called The Divorce.
Okay.
And in the book, I speak about how I started to have an affair.
Yeah.
So during my 2 professional seasons, I started to have an affair with football. So when the off season came, I already kind of had stuff to do.
Yeah.
Right. Which, good, bad, or indifferent, that's how I was. So when those off seasons did end up coming, it was like, what do I, besides training, like, what am I and what do I have to do? And like, thankfully, I had the podcast because of my affair on football, right? Thankfully, I had the podcast kind of dive into, but I definitely relate to just what am I? Because like podcasts don't take up 24 hours.
Nah.
And I still have that issue. Like I go to work and I'll come home and like beyond the podcast or beyond me writing and stuff like that, I still be like I see people when they get off work, they go out, they do this with their friends, this and that. I'm like, not that I don't have friends, but it's like, sometimes I sit at home like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like because we've always had football and we've always had structure. We've always
That's real.
I seen a post the other day and it was about fall camp and it was started at 6 a.m. and it went to 10 p.m. Every 30 minutes something scheduled. So it's like when you come to a point in your life here and it's like I get off work, I do my podcast, I do whatever case I do. I'm always feeling like I have to do something or like I'm useless. Like what, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I get where you're coming from. It's like what do we do? Like what are we doing? Like what am I?
And to people that didn't never really experience that, it's like absurd to him. Like they like, how do you not know how to just chill? Why do you got to get up at 5 a.m.? Like et cetera. You know what I mean? But nah, that's real, bro. I think that part two, what you're saying about that affair piece, I think that was dope that you was able to cultivate that though. You started like, they always tell us have a plan B. And for me, like I thought I was a good student. I was active and all that stuff in school. But I always felt like, for me, I always had my heart set on playing in the league. That I didn't never really cultivate who I was outside the game, or really take it that seriously because this was it and that's all I wanted to do.
And sometimes I feel like it's sad because when it comes to athletes or when it comes to entertainers, because it is so abstract, because it is only 1% that make it right. A lot of people always tell you have a plan B, but when you go to school to be an engineer, they don't tell you to have a plan B. Like, no, you're supposed to lock 100% of your time, 100% of your energy into being this engineer, into being this, into being whatever it is you want to be. But because it's so abstract to be an athlete or entertainment, it's so rare, people tell you to have a plan B. But it's like, me personally, like, a lot of people may disagree with this, but I don't believe in plan Bs. Like, I believe in, like, you know what I'm saying? There's, like, you on the interstate. I'm on 77. There's a couple exits that I might, but a whole nother plan B, like, no, I don't have that. There are some places where I might go if things don't work out, but I don't have a plan B. And I don't feel like plan Bs are real because if you're not putting 100% in what you really want to happen, then how do you expect it to happen? Like The Alchemist, like you were saying, like if you I couldn't want 10 different things because the universe ain't gonna give me 10 different things. What's the one thing you want?
Real.
So like I said, I definitely understand. It's just like you said, like people just they don't understand it, and it's like because it is the abstract, like 1% make it for a reason with whatever you do. So
you gotta lock in. And that, like for me, I'm the type of person that if I do have a backup plan, I'm not fully committed. I got to be fully committed into something. And sometimes there's a balance. I'm learning nowadays. Like I gotta have a little bit more balance. You can't be so extreme. But at the same time, it's like I know how I am. That like if I commit to something, I'm committed to it, and we're gonna see this through. You know what I mean? That plan that I have, if something goes wrong, it's just a plan that helps me course correct. If I need to, like you said, with them exits. And so, yeah, bro, I think I say like all of that is like after I finished coaching in that season, bro, I was back home again. And I was just sitting there kind of like figuring out like, damn, what's next? Because I really didn't know what to do. So I was working at a car wash and I remember like feeling down. I was feeling down and I remember people that I went to high school with, they would come to the car wash and I'm washing their car and they'd be like, I thought you was playing in the NFL. I thought you was, and it's that feeling of hurt because like, damn, I couldn't even watch football during this time, bro. But I remember I was in the parking lot sweeping up, and like I feel like it was God talking to me in this moment, man. And it was just like this epiphany of like, if you continue to define yourself by the things that you do, then you might as well just go ahead and just be done with this life. Yeah. That's how it felt. And it's like you got to stop defining yourself by the things you do because you're more than what you do. So even if you are sweeping up a parking lot right now, you're more than just a person sweeping up. You have so much worth in you than this. And so it was like that was a moment, I guess, in that time where it kind of clicked for me of like, all right, I am more than what I do. And so like I began to kind of just look to rediscover who I was. And so I felt like that put me on this journey where I had an opportunity to be a part of different organizations that helped me look more introspectively and figure out more about myself that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to because football was this grand thing in my life that I was just so focused on.
Basically, like that's a good point, right? Because on the steps to self-discovery, like you have that reflection. Like first comes awareness.
Yeah.
Like you have to really be aware of what's going on because a lot of people live this zombie life where like they sweep that parking lot every day and they think that's all they're good for. They think that's what their purpose is. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's how you think. But it's like when you feel like you have more or when you've achieved something before in your life and you're just like, I want to get back to achieving something, right? Whether that's how I value my worth or not, I want to achieve something, right? So it comes awareness, right? And then like you said, it takes those self-discovery, right? It takes those actionable steps that, hey, let's get involved with some organizations that, one, I can help others, and two, I can use these organizations as a tool to begin to help myself. So tell us, a little bit about some of those organizations or some of the stuff you started to do once you started to be aware of what's going on in your mind and in your life.
That's real. That's a good question, too. So some of the organizations, the first one was the Winston-Salem Fellows. Okay. I was part of this program called the Winston-Salem Fellows, 10-month leadership development program. Help you define your God-given purpose, connect you with different business leaders, and et cetera around the city of Winston-Salem. Yeah. But a part of that was we took a lot of personality tests, so like Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, stuff like that to kind of help you really start thinking about the things where you see your blind spots. And so that was an eye-opening thing for me. It's like I was able to accomplish all these things, but I had such low self-regard, right? Yeah. And so it was an opportunity to rebuild my confidence. And I think that, like, doing stuff like that had helped me to sit in and increase that self-awareness. I also think that, like, serving in general is that, at least for me, serving others has been something that I've always been drawn to, even when I was playing sports, like mentoring and things like that. So me being able to go back into my community, back home, and talk to young kids who grew up like me, who might not ever see positive influences in their life, to go back and be able to serve was something that was important to me. And so that helped me learn that I have this encouraging aspect, that I have this desire to empower other people. Yeah. So I was serving in the communities, working with nonprofits. I was working with I was also coaching a little league football team with my uncle at the time. Yeah. So it's crazy to see nowadays these kids on in college now. But it's like, dang, I remember when you was in middle school. So doing stuff like that, man. And then just like the fast forward, man. So like journaling, writing. When you talked about writing, I was like, man, I feel like we got a lot in common. Yeah. But one of the things is like I've always used to write. Ever since, even when I played sports, to when I was a kid, man, I just used to write all the time, journaling. I got so many journals. But unbeknownst to me, that used to be like my therapy because I couldn't talk to a lot of people and I didn't always feel safe talking to people. I just kind of kept a lot of stuff in. I smile on the surface, but internally got a lot of stuff I'm holding on to. But journaling, man, was my outlet to express these emotions that I didn't know how to express. And so when I finally, what really was the catalyst for me was therapy. Yeah. That was the ultimate catalyst to help me truly crack the code of what was happening within me, addressing like these wounds that I've had since a little child. That I found that void in football, and now that it was gone, it just comes back. So therapy really set me apart to help find the tools to cope in a positive way, and also to feel safe and like being vulnerable with other people.
Yeah. Vulnerability is the key to understanding like yourself and others, and vulnerability is the key to connection. Like you can't connect with people unless you're honest, right? Because I mean you can, but it's not true connection. It's not true vulnerability. It's not genuine, and like I think something I've always been able to do is be vulnerable, right? So I was always able to just like kind of, well, I'm not gonna say always, but something always strive to do was be vulnerable. Like just be as honest as I can. Yeah. Whatever happens is what has happened. Like there's not necessarily a mistake. You make a decision, and then whatever happens, you got to deal with off that. But I don't feel like there was being able to to make that mistake. So you're sweeping. You have this awareness. Okay. You start to get into these foundations. You get into these organizations, and now you're starting to do the work. Some of these things are coming in and they're opening up things in your life and in your mind. What's next in this journey of self-discovery and finding yourself?
Yeah, what's next in this self discovery? I think it's like getting reps at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like now that I'm finding out more things about myself, like, oh, I like to write. Okay. And then kind of like this double dutch. You know how like when you about to double dutch or something, you waiting to bounce in and to get in the middle. I feel like that's how it was of like expressing it.
Okay.
So like, for example, I started realizing that I like to write, but then like I had a mentor around me. His name's Nigel Austin, and he used to write for the Winston-Salem Journal.
Okay.
And I used to be shy about like the stuff that I had. I'm like, I don't know if this stuff is good. You know what I mean? Because I never put it out there.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, just put it out there. And he always would convince me, like, put your stuff out. Just do it. It don't really matter if one person like it or nobody like it. Just put it out there. And so I eventually cracked, and I created this not podcast. I created a blog called Wisdom in the Room. And in that was literally me just being vulnerable through the pen and sharing it with the world. And at some points, like, I didn't realize how much that made an impact on other people when they be like, bro, thank you for sharing that, bro. I'd be feeling the same way. Or, man, just like random people that was like gravitating towards it. And me being consistent in that writing and realizing that not only am I getting a release from this, I'm also helping other people. That made me feel good of like, dang, maybe I do need to lean more into this. And so it's like that was a pivotal point for me. But I also, I guess to piggyback on that too, is like making sure that you have people around you that's going to pull that out of you. Because I can also say that like the isolation part was me, right? Me going internal. But I can name about 3-4 people during that time that pulled me out, not physically, but like mentally, emotionally, spiritually pulled me out, poured into me and said like, yo, bro, you're good. You on this path. And like, maybe they could see it before I could see it. They saw things in me that I didn't, so it helped me to believe in myself and actually acknowledge some of those gifts that I was not, that I was blind to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I say that's kind of like I've expressed this on a few episodes, and like that's kind of what this was for me. It was like this is my way to help others, right? By giving them tools to put in their toolbox of life, so they can probably, you know what I'm saying, begin to work, you know, throughout their life and things like that. And it's also my way of like a therapy, right? I started to write, you know, I do a lot of yoga, so I'm big on mindfulness, but it's like somebody else got it. You know what I'm saying? When you're writing, you by yourself. When you're doing yoga, unless you're in the class, you know what I'm saying, I'm by myself on my mat. So it's like community is something that's big, and I feel like that's something as athletes, I think that's one of the biggest things that attacks us when we leave. Because when you ask most athletes, maybe not all of them, but if you ask most athletes, what is the number one thing they miss? You know, winning might be up there. You know, playing football itself might be up there. But something that's going to always be constant is the locker room, right? And maybe not literally, but like your teammates, your coaches, like you just having that environment, having that community around you. To like you're never alone. And even like you said, when you were alone, like I think a lot of athletes probably do deal with this. We play football, and then that's our void. We having girl problems, we having classroom problems, we having family problems. Like, fuck it, we going to practice. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? We'll go hit somebody. You know what I'm saying? Go block somebody, or just be around my teammates where I ain't got to think about it. Like I'm just so much surrounded, and I don't have to think about it. And that's that mental and emotional isolation I speak about, right? Because everyone kind of can see physical isolation. I'm not around nobody. I don't speak with nobody. I'm kind of whatever the case may be. But a lot of people struggle with the mental isolation. When I'm in the locker room with 20 people, when I'm joking around, when I'm laughing, when they don't see nothing, when I put the smile on my face, that's where the vulnerability is needed. Because so many people struggle with this, and you don't, like you said, you were once that kid that didn't know how to express himself. Right? There's another kid out there like that. And until they see somebody who can do it, until you've seen your, you know what I'm saying, your mentor who's writing for this, you know, this journal, you were able to do it. Like, so that's why it's important for us to have platforms like this, to have platforms like you, and to just like not be afraid to be vulnerable. And it's not that we're perfect, but it's literally here just us telling our story so that you can see that I'm not perfect, he's not perfect, she's not perfect, you're not perfect, but let's be imperfect together and just kind of learn how we can do this thing. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Accidental Isolation. Today we got Matthew here with us.
Yes, sir.
And we are at the wonderful Wentworth and Finn. Yes, we are. We're going to begin the show today with a nice little Taste testing. So Tam, come on in and tell us what we got.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
So we have our coconut macaroon,
Okay.
which is completely gluten-free just in case.
Okay.
A coffee marble muffin with a crumb topping. And then my assistant, Charlotte, she made a very special citrus blueberry matcha roll. So y'all enjoy.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Let's see which one to dive into first.
Let's do the citrus matcha roll. That's kind of calling me. That's different.
Oh yeah, go ahead and take a bite of
I'm
that.
gonna take a bite. Take a little bit night. Okay, citrus. And it was my birthday this past week. It's like another cake.
Yeah. Happy belated, bro. Like that?
Fire.
Okay.
Okay.
I gotta try that. No, I'm not a caffeine guy.
Okay.
I don't do caffeine.
No
and I
coffee,
don't
nothing?
matcha. Huh?
No coffee, nothing.
No, nothing. But since we got it all today, so I'm gonna try it out. Cause I don't do coconut, so I'll take the risk with
I
caffeine.
feel you.
All right, let me try this.
Yeah. Which one was that? I'm gonna try that.
She said that was coffee something.
Okay. Oh, okay. I got
Yeah,
you.
it was coffee. Yeah.
You don't do the caffeine.
Yeah, so you can just take a bite of that one.
All right.
Let's see.
Say less. This looks good though.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, how is that?
It's good. It's good. I like that one.
Making milk. Oh wow.
All right, man, there you have it. So if you're ever in the Camp North End area, or if you just want something sweet, make sure you come check out Wentworth and Finn here in Camp North End, and tell them Chauncey sent you.
I told you I was looking at one of my old journals before I came in here, and I was looking at one of my entries. And in the entry, it was talking about how, like, I'm just summarizing it, but essentially I felt like I was hurting really badly, but nobody could really see it. And I was basically smiling and cool to everybody, but deep inside I was hurting. And this is stuff that I'm writing. I'm looking, I'm like, daggum. And then I think I said something in there too, this aspect of having to be perfect and stuff like that. And I realized that, like, sometimes as a football player, you kind of get typecast into certain positions. If you're a captain on the team and all these different things, it's like you feel like you can't make a mistake. You can't be a bad character guy. You got to be smiling. You gotta be strong. You gotta not get in trouble. You got all these different things. And I was dealing with all this idea of this false sense of perfection, and in reality, it does not exist, bro. And I think that, like, it goes back to what you're saying, that we all are imperfect people, and we all kind of just trying to figure this thing out. And I think that, like, one of the coolest things that I think to see happen in this day and age, especially amongst black men, but like former athletes, is being vulnerable of, like, yeah, bro, it's been dark days. Yeah. It's been some dark days, bro. Yeah. But then also knowing that I can relate to that, and also being like, hey, bro, I'm here for you if you need that, bro. Let's just chop it up. Yeah. And also knowing that it's like, it's dark, but it's also light too, man. It's light that's coming at the end of that darkness. And so you just gotta hold on. You just gotta hold and talk.
You have to be able to ask for help. Like no one knows what you're going through, and like holding all that stuff in is like it can't help you. It won't help you unless someone knows what you're going through. Yeah. And like you said, like when I started this podcast, I started with a lot of athletes. Yeah. So a lot of people started to ask, like, is this an athletic podcast? Yeah, I get that. And I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah. And I love bringing athletes on because a lot of people look up to athletes. And athlete stories, although it may seem grandiose and it may seem like this big thing that no other people can go through because I was at the NFL, I was at the top level, there's similarities in everything, right? Just like we're team captains, right? There's people who are managers. There's people who are CEOs. There's people who are, you know what I'm saying, they're the pastor of the church, right? There's people, like, it doesn't matter what you do. There's similarities in all our stories. Like, we all live the same life. It just looks different, right? The picture's a little different. We all got same paint strokes, just different color, different, you know what I'm saying, different direction. And it's like, you can grab something from everyone's story. And, like, that's the biggest reason for this platform. And just to see is, like, there's no perfection in you, but until you are vulnerable enough to seek help, or vulnerable enough to, not even about seeking help, because a lot of times it's scary. Like, a lot of times seeking help is scary, especially growing up in a community. Like, I can speak from growing up in a community where it's like, as a black man, right? What is depression? What is sadness? What is Oh, you didn't get this, so you mad?
Quit being soft.
You quit being soft. Well, like there's so many different things that come along with that. So it is hard to ask for help, right? Like there's times where it's like, to this day I don't ask for help. I'm struggling. I don't ask for help. But at the same time, you have to do something. Yeah. That may look like just expressing your story. That may just look like, you know what I'm saying? It can look like different ways. Yeah. And that's why, like, the catchphrase of the show is putting tools in your toolbox of life, right? Because at the end of the day, we're here to tell these stories, and you can read as many books as you want. You can join as many organizations as you want. You can do as much therapy as you want. Yeah. But until you pick the tool up yourself and begin to work on your project, you know what I'm saying? But work on yourself, right? Whatever it is, right? It's not gonna come together. Yeah. You can look at the screwdriver. You can have the biggest toolkit in the world. Yeah. Until you start to pick those tools up and you start to build those things, it's not gonna work out. And that's why we're here to help give these tools for the toolbox, so that you can, whenever you're ready, however you're ready, pick those up and start to work on your life. You spoke about how you kind of had like a few different isolations. Yeah. Let's dive into another. Like, what was something else that you may have went through that?
I think the pandemic was the next isolation. I think that everybody, we all had our own isolations right there, right? Some people, the pandemic was great, but I think the pandemic was like the fulfillment of self-discovery for me. I felt like, wow, who is this man? But also it came with like its own things. At the beginning of that year, you know, growing up, my pops wasn't around, so it was always that tension that was there. And at the beginning of the year, I wrote him a letter, and it's just like, man, I forgive you. I forgive you, and I felt like that was a cracking of opening, like this new level of like releasing of healing for me. Yeah. And so in doing so, my dad and I have a much better relationship to this day. But at the same time, it was the start of something much deeper for me. And what the pandemic taught me is like, we can't go outside, we can't do nothing. I had to really sit with myself, and I was actually okay with that. I'm an introvert I am a little bit of an introvert. So, but like the aspect of me sitting with my thoughts, didn't really make me scared. So like what I started to do is like I had this big sticky note on the wall, and I would write things that I noticed about myself. So like I might be like, man, I'm creative, or man, I don't really respond well to criticism. You know, anything that I notice. And like I began to like work on these things throughout that year. And so like I think it helped me to feel more confident in myself, and also lean into this idea of expression. Like that I can be all these things that I am because I can express it. So I did some modeling. I had a modeling opportunity with Champion during the pandemic. I went on a whole podcast tour during the pandemic. I went from Denver up Cali to Seattle. It was cool, bro. Yeah. And it was just this opportunity of just like embracing like this aspect of myself that I never had experienced before. Yoga, all that stuff was like I started getting into it deep, bro. And it was like introducing a new Mathu Gibson. Like this is who you are, bro. This is who has always been in you. Live in this truth and let that person shine. Like that's kind of how it was. And so it was that isolation from the pandemic, and then just having to spend that time with myself where I can't escape it through work. I can't escape it through mentoring. You know, no, bro. Sit down. Write this stuff out. No, bro. Pay attention to these things that you're learning about yourself, for sure. And so it was, when I sit back and I think about the pandemic, obviously it was terrible, like all the, everything that happened. But I sit back and I felt blessed, man, because I'm like, I connected with myself in such a way that made me feel, I guess, whole, that like it really healed that void that from the past. You know what I mean?
Let's dive into a little bit of what that process is. Yeah. Like what that looked like. Like, we went on these tours, right? We started writing these notes. We started doing some of the work. What did that work feel like? Because a lot of times, a lot of times self-healing journey, especially on social media or just when you speak about it, it looks as if it's like this, like it is a great thing that we're diving into ourselves. But when you begin to dive deep, like the ocean, the deeper you go, the darker it gets. Yeah, so when you start to dive into this, it's like, what did some of those days look like? Like, was it always good? Every day was just smiling. You know what I'm saying? So how did that feel? Like, what were some emotions that might have came up? What were some things and like I said, we're here to get as vulnerable as you want. So obviously we don't got to go as deep as, you know what I'm saying? But like, what are some of those dark emotions that came up, how did it affect you? What did it look like? What were some emotions that were coming up?
Yeah, bro. I would say I was afraid. Like at some point, I remember at some points it was just dark. I felt hopeless in some regards. But then I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm like, all right, this is just a moment. And I remember my therapist, man, she said the coldest thing to me one time. She was just like, sadness is like this hourglass. She was like, when you allow yourself to feel it, it'll run out and eventually it'll be gone. But the longer you reject it, it's like an hourglass that's turned over onto the side and it's never going to run out. So you have to allow yourself to feel it. Yeah. And so that was the biggest thing is like, I had to learn to let myself experience sadness because, remember I told you I'm so used to smiling. Behind this mask, who is he? But I had to let that inner child be sad. I had to let myself feel what anger feels like, you know what I mean? And not try to hide that. And so across that journey, it was a lot of sadness that came up. And obviously because we were physically distant from people, not everybody saw that. I think sometimes, even if you're being real, finding ways to numb it. And whether it might be, all right, a woman or a drink or something, whatever, just trying to find ways to numb it versus actually deal with it. But then realizing like, nah, bro, you actually got to sit with this. You can't just numb out. That's not cool. Yeah. Deal with it. But even like to like the whole idea of like doing a tour on the West Coast, it was the idea of just go see some of my homies out there. But at the same time, I was afraid to do it because this fear of one, getting sick, two, the fear of like what other people may think about me. Yeah. Like, what if it's whack, or what if I don't know what to do? Yeah. And so I guess that's anxiety that I was feeling and this overthinking. But once again, it was people that were around me that was like, nah, bro, you should definitely do it. Yeah. Let's do it. Bring your stuff over here. You can stay at this place for you. I'm going to set you up so you ain't got to really think too much about it. And we're going to hop on the podcast with you. Let's do that. I think that's a dope idea. You should do it. And so that encouragement helped your boy out a lot, man. But I definitely would say that there were good days. There were bad days. But overall, I didn't let it overtake me. But journaling was something that really did help me. I did this thing during the pandemic too, like 21 days of journaling. Okay. And so I was just like, had people come and do it with me. But I really got deep with myself though, just kind of looking at like why I act the way I am, to just in general. It's like just different things would come up for me throughout the day. My relationship with myself, my relationship with family, my relationship with women, and just in general. And it just kind of like an opportunity to stop running. And face what you gotta face, and sit with sit with it, bro.
I think that's the biggest thing, and I think that's what helped me a lot is on the journey, and it's something I still struggle with to this day because I struggle with the perfectionist syndrome. Because I was a team captain, I was an All-American. In the family, I'm the poster child, right? My other, some of my other family members in and out of jail, this and that. So it's like I'm the good boy. Yeah, I gotta be the good boy, and it's like. By doing so, like I was the emotional child, so they see me cry, they see me sad, you know what I'm saying? Yes. But I didn't get angry because what do I have to be angry for? I didn't do this, I didn't get in trouble, I don't got this on my record. So it's like understanding that emotions is something that you cannot control. There's no such thing as controlling emotions, right? You can only regulate them. Yeah. It's like water. You cannot control water. Yeah. You can put a glass in there, you can kind of put it in one area, but water's gonna be water. Yeah. All you can do is kind of control where it flows. Yeah. And it's like you said, like you have to sit with these emotions. You have to allow yourself to be sad and angry. And I feel like anger anger is the emotion I struggle with most as far as feeling. Because what do I have to be angry about? Because I'm like you. Like I'll be mad. I'll be frustrated. And I'll go to bed and I'll get up. Because at the end of the day, like all the work I've done, I know this stuff is temporary. I know whatever it is, right, I'm going to be over it. So then I live like that. Like, it's going to be over, so I get over it. But then it's there. Because it's not going nowhere until you let it flow somewhere else. Like it's not going nowhere. So it's like you good that next day. And then you good the next day. Then you good next week. And then the same thing is So it's like my cup's always filled. Yeah. And it's like I may drink it down just a little bit, but then two more like times it's just like another explosion. Yeah. And I never get it completely empty because I never allow myself to really feel in it. Yeah. Like I'll give myself a second, like take a deep breath, right? I'll do the meditations, right? I'll do the breathing techniques, right? I'll get on my mat. I'll read some philosophy. I'll figure out. I'll get some information in that's supposed to help me. But once again, I'm not doing the work. I'm not letting that anger, that emotions really sit there with me to allow that cup to empty out. So now I'll be good for the next day. And in the moment something happens, I'm right back to snapping. And like, yeah, like I be trying not to, but it's just like, like I said, like we're not here on this show to be like, we went through this, we figured it out, now we're perfect. That's not what we're here for, because we still aren't perfect. Like, there's still things we struggle with. We're here to just tell you that, hey, we still struggling, but this is some of the stuff that helps us.
It's a struggle for sure, bro. And I think what you're saying, when we talk about anger, there's so many things that kind of restricted me from feeling like I can't show anger outside of on the football field.
Yeah.
It's one, I'm a big ass black man, bro.
Let
me go out here and start,
smile.
Bro, what? Let me go out here and start snapping. Everybody is running around like they seen Godzilla, bro. It's gonna be like they gonna be afraid, right? And so in some ways we've had to learn to condition ourselves to keep that shit hidden away. You know what I mean? Or let me go work out real good and just release it. But you're right, it don't go away. And what I've had to realize over these last few years too is that, like, truthfully, at the bottom of that anger that I'm not allowing myself to feel is just sadness, like a deep sadness. And that's truly what anger, when I think about some of the men in my life who be snapping and just be angry, or they feel like they always on edge, when I sit back and look at them holistically, I'm like, my brother is just sad. Yeah. He's deeply sad and ain't never had a space to actually express and let that shit go. But it's just because as black men in our world, we ain't always been given the opportunity to, or always shown how to release anger in a constructive way. And so sometimes when you hold on to anger, and this is what I've learned, is when you hold on to anger, it comes out at the worst time in the worst way, and it looks like rage. And when it looks like rage, it's like you might have had a fair reason to be angry, but because now you have raged out in its own way, nobody's actually hearing what you got to say, bro. Because you just like nah, bro. You just spaz, bro. You just, and they're afraid. Now people are afraid of you. And so it's like learning how to use your words. And this is me talking to myself. It's just learning to use my words when, especially communicating anger, bro.
We had a guest on the show, Justin Brown. I love Justin. He was one of my mentors. I don't speak to him as much now. I wish I could, but he's in Greenville. He's a busy man. He's over at Furman. I forgot he does a lot of stuff at Furman, but I know he also does the chaplain and all that stuff at Furman. And he said something. He kind of broke it down. He was like, both of us and a lot of other people, we got layers to break down to why we can't express ourselves. One, we're African American, we're black. So in our community, mental health and stuff like that already isn't talked about or is shunned upon, right? Two, we're men. So now we're black men, right? So as men, we're blue collar, right? Most men now, you know what I'm saying, we still have that blue collar. We have father figures or uncles, whatever in life that are blue collar. So they're telling us, like, it don't matter what's going on. You got to shut up, like, keep it going.
Keep going.
You know what I'm saying? Then we're athletes. As an athlete, it's every play mentality. It's what can you do for us lately? Like, that literally was our slogan, like one of our slogans in college, right? And as an athlete, like, that's the truth. Real. Like, you make a sack this play, the next play you give up a touchdown, right? You give up a sack this play, the next play you get a pancake. It literally doesn't matter what you did. It matters what you do now. So that's 3 whole layers where it's like, at the end of the day, you have no opportunity to express yourself truly, to talk about what you're really going through, and to deal with what you really got to go through. And it's like, as we get older, and why it's important for athletic black men, right, to get on these things and to talk about it is to help break down those layers. And like, even someone like Doug, like you said, like someone who's in the field, like really still doing this work for these athletes to see, and like for these people to see, and it's like, it's just inspiring. Like you said, like people like you and Doug, like are people who I always try to, I look at, I see, and it's like I try to continue to grow after, because it's like that's what I strive to be like, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, all of us are different, but those are the things I strive to be, and be able to be vulnerable to help teach the people, like, because we have to break these layers down. Unless there's going to be it's going to be those black cycle. Men angry, raging out on people, for sure. And that's not even really the case. And then it's going to be harder for them to get help, because now they put themselves. Now they're in the system. So now that's 4 layers, right? You know what I'm saying? You feel they black, they men, they athletes, and they're in the system now. So now there's 4 layers that you got to break down more and more and more, just to get some help.
Yeah, bro.
Because that's all we need is help.
All we need is help, bro.
Yeah.
Man, and I do. I got to give you your flowers too, bro, because like you creating a platform like this, and even the way that you present yourself, like on social media. But I'm sure that the way you present yourself on social media is also how you present yourself in real life too, man. I think it is an example to see people like us big. I think that's also
big.
you also it's another layer.
looking
big,
at you.
big black men
Yeah.
that are being vulnerable about some real the internal things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It'd be so easy for us to walk around, put a facade on, and let our ego do the talking. But when you start breaking that ego down, man, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, and you know, I think it draws people to you, and you're able to create safe space for other people, and that's something that I always envision I want to do. You know what I mean? And I think that like coming in contact with people like you, people like Doug, I think that also is an opportunity, you know, in the future to create like
More spaces.
more spaces for men to be vulnerable with each other because, like you said, that locker room component. Where does it go once you know, like once you're doing your everyday life, you taking care of kids, you working a job, or you know what I'm saying, you just navigating life, bro. So having that safe space where you can really talk about like, hey, brother, this is what I'm going through for real, or this is what I'm struggling with, you know what I'm saying, even if that's just one person. And then having somebody that can also give you some tools too, bro, because that's important to be able, it's one thing to just talk about it, but it's also like, all right, how can I grow from this?
Yeah, or what are some actionable things that I can actually take and use?
Yeah.
And like on that point, like how, you know, as we wrap up the show is like I said earlier in the show, like the catchphrase of the show is tools in the toolbox, because like at the end of the day, we can have all these spaces, we can talk about all the stuff we need to talk about, but like I need something to actually do. You know how many times people tell me it's gonna be all right? I was like, man, I believe you so much because I'm an optimistic person, so I do believe you, and like not even egotistically, but like I know it's gonna be all right. Like I know it because the type of person I am, I'm gonna make sure it's all right. But until it's all right, tell me how I can make it all right. Like give me something actionable, right, that I can do. And you've mentioned a lot of things that already. So at the end of the show, I like to just give them those actionable steps, like right in your face, right, that you can take away from this episode, from this show, that I can actually do, and I can put these tools in my toolbox and help me with life. So if you want to just give me like 2 or 3 tools,
2 or 3 tools. 2 or 3 tools that
you
work
can
for
look
me,
at
or
it.
just 2 or 3?
For you, this is your
I got
story.
you.
This
All
is
right.
what, because all we can really speak from is I.
ourselves.
Anytime we speak about somebody else, it's an assumption.
Got you.
Unless they tell us,
real.
right? All we can speak from is I, and
real.
that's why we talk. That's like
got
that's
you.
the logo, it's the I. Big I. You know what I'm saying? But like that's why, because all like anything outside of ourselves is a assumption. Unless someone tells us a fact about themselves, everything else is assumption. So yeah, any tools you want to give, just you know what I'm saying, just for the audience, the guests that's listening right now, that they can take into their life and they can help.
Yeah, man. First thing I would say is tap into stillness. So stillness might look like journaling. Stillness might look like meditating. Stillness might look like prayer for you, whatever you believe. Tapping into that spiritual connection. And then just being still, making time to sit with your thoughts and process. And I don't know if I said journaling, but that would also be in that stillness piece. Find time for stillness where it's just you and you can be with your thoughts. The other thing that I would say is exercise. Move your body. That's something that I always, when I feel down, sometimes the best thing I do is just go for a walk. Maybe that might be stretching. Maybe that's all I got to give. Maybe it's just moving your body in some type of way. And then the last thing I would say is community. So that might look like creating a safe space with you and your homies. That might be finding a quality therapist. That might be joining some type of organization that gives you community. But those are 3 things that I say are in my toolbox that help to support me. And when I'm at my best, I'm tapped into it all.
All 3. Yeah, that's dope. And that's like one thing that I often forget to mention, even as a yoga instructor, it's kind of weird, but like movement is directly attached to the brain and to the mental, and you know what I'm saying, and the associate, you know, physiology of the body, because like we are meant to move. Like we aren't plants, we aren't trees. We're meant to be movement, and movement, you know, the blood circulation. I'm not gonna get all scientific into it, but like movement is literally key to releasing certain endorphins in the brain to actually help you get over things. So that's dope, man. So y'all heard it. You know what I'm saying? Y'all heard it here first, right? The 3 tools that you can take and put in your toolbox of life. As we end the show, man, I always like to give space for my guests to, you know, promote anything they have going on, or just share any, you know, words of wisdom or anything that they want to, you know what I'm saying, put out on the show before we end.
Yeah, man. I guess you could follow me on Instagram at Mathu_Gibson. Another thing that I'm currently in the process of truly building up, it's called Connecting the Dots Athlete Summit.
Okay.
I might screw it up right now, but I believe it's CTD Athlete Summit on Instagram as well. But it's an organization that I'm creating to help athletes discover who they are outside of the game. It's connected to my story and wanting to help support athletes all around the nation just to really learn who they are while they're still playing. Like you said, in some ways like that affair, right? Let's start building that up so that when the game ends, when it does, it's not such a significant drop, right? And we are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically prepared to handle what's coming next. And so that's really, that's what I got going on. And then my last words of wisdom to be like, just remember this is that who you are is not what you do.
Yeah.
And so it's like the things that you do in this life are just an expression of the things that come from inside. So invest on the internal things. Invest in that. Yeah.
Man, I appreciate like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show. I do just want to add one thing now is like, I know after the pandemic, after COVID, right, when podcasts and everything was huge, right, if you can't find the time to listen to a 30, 45-minute episode, coming soon or by the time this episode's out, I'll be releasing my my ebook, right? Nice. Where it's just a guide, you know what I'm saying, to a tool. It gives you journals and it gives you direct actionable steps, right, that the guests from the seasons 1 and 2 have mentioned. It gives you direct actionable steps that you can use, right, as long as the journals and all the good stuff on there. So be sure to check that out if you want. Appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir,
Yes, sir, and that's a wrap.
Appreciate you having me.